Hey Reddit. I've been reading through this subreddit for a while, but never thought I'd be posting here myself. I guess you could say I never expected something like this to happen to me. But here I am, looking for advice and, honestly, a little bit of reassurance. I don't know if I'm being paranoid, but I don't think I am. So here's my story. I'm 34, and I've been married to my wife, Megan, for 7 years. We've had what I thought was a happy marriage, at least on the surface. We met when I was 26, she was 25, and after dating for a couple of years, we got married. Megan is an amazing woman, smart, beautiful, funny, and she's always been so dedicated to our relationship. I've never doubted her commitment to me or to our life together. We don't have any major issues. Sure, we've had the occasional argument about stupid things, but nothing that ever made me think there was anything wrong. We've always had great communication, and I always thought that would be enough to keep us strong. At least, that's what I thought. It started about a month ago. Megan began acting a little off. Nothing huge, but small things that made me uneasy. She started working late more often, saying it was because she had extra projects at work. I get it, I really do. We both work, and sometimes you have to stay late to meet deadlines. But it seemed like it was happening more often than usual. She'd come home exhausted, but I didn't think much of it. I just assumed it was work stress. Then, she started going out with her friends a lot more frequently, sometimes on weekends when we usually spent time together. I didn't think it was anything major, but I did start to feel a little bit neglected. Still, I didn't say anything. I didn't want to sound like I was being controlling or paranoid. But then came the night that changed everything. I was getting ready to leave for work early one morning, and I decided to quickly grab something from Megan's purse that I had forgotten. It wasn't unusual for me to get things from her purse. In fact, we've always been open with each other about our personal belongings. So, I didn't think twice when I grabbed her purse and opened it to get my wallet. But what I found made my stomach drop. As I was rummaging through the purse, I noticed a small piece of paper folded up in one of the side compartments. I pulled it out, thinking it was just a receipt or a note from a friend. But when I opened it, I saw something I didn't expect. It was a phone number, written in Megan's handwriting. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe it was for work or for a friend. But as I looked closer, I realized it wasn't a number I recognized. It wasn't a family member's number, nor was it someone from her work. In fact, I had never seen it before in my life. My heart started pounding in my chest. I immediately felt a wave of anxiety hit me, and I couldn't shake it. I kept looking at the number, turning it over in my head. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was nothing. But then a thought hit me. What if it wasn't nothing? I had to know. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but I couldn't stop myself. My curiosity and my growing suspicion got the best of me. I grabbed my phone and did the one thing I promised myself I would never do. I dialed the number. It only rang once before it went to voicemail. I heard a man's voice pick up. "Hey, it's Ryan. Leave a message." I froze. My heart sank into my stomach. Ryan? Who the hell was Ryan? My mind was racing now, the pieces falling into place in ways I hadn't even begun to consider. Megan had been acting distant lately. She'd been out more often, and now there was a guy named Ryan in her life. It didn't take a genius to figure out what this all meant, but I couldn't bring myself to believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to give Megan the benefit of the doubt, but the doubt was growing. I quickly hung up the phone and stared at the number in my hand. My body was shaking. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should confront her about it, or if I should just wait until I had more information. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that there was no going back. I had seen the number, heard the voicemail, and now I was left with a choice. Should I confront her and risk tearing apart everything we had? Or should I keep pretending like nothing was wrong? I couldn't stop thinking about that phone number. The more I replayed the voicemail in my head, the more my anxiety took over. Ryan. The voice had been calm, relaxed, almost too casual, like it was normal for him to leave a message on Megan's voicemail. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself there could be an explanation. Maybe he was a coworker. Maybe it was a business contact. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. I knew something was wrong. The entire day was a blur. I couldn't focus on anything. Work, the kids, even small conversations felt like I was in a fog. I went through the motions, but my mind was consumed with thoughts of Megan. Who was this Ryan? What was their relationship? And more importantly, how had I not seen this coming? Was I so absorbed in my own world that I missed the signs? I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't just let this eat away at me. But how could I even bring it up? What would I say? Hey, Megan, I found a phone number in your purse and called it, and it turns out it belongs to some guy named Ryan. Care to explain? It seemed ridiculous. It seemed like something straight out of a soap opera. But here I was, standing at the edge of something I never expected to happen in my life. I didn't know what to do next. That evening, Megan got home later than usual. She came in with a smile, like everything was normal. She hugged me, kissed me on the cheek, and began talking about her day, just like she always did. But I couldn't keep the facade up. My mind was still racing, and my heart was pounding in my chest. I knew I had to address it. There was no way around it. Megan, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, we need to talk. She stopped mid-sentence and looked at me with confusion in her eyes. What's wrong? She asked, clearly sensing that something was off. I didn't know how to say it, so I just blurted it out. I found a phone number in your purse today. A number for a guy named Ryan. Who is he? Her face went pale. She looked like she had been slapped in the face, her eyes wide with panic. For a split second, I saw a flicker of guilt flash across her face before she quickly composed herself. Jeremy, I can explain, she stammered, her voice shaking. I crossed my arms and stared at her, waiting for her to continue. Explain? Explain what? Why there's a random guy's phone number in your purse. Why I found it when I was just looking for my wallet. Why I called it and heard a man leave a voicemail saying his name was Ryan. She shifted uncomfortably, looking down at the floor. I could tell she was trying to find the right words, but none of them seemed to come. I didn't want you to find out like this, she said softly. I never meant for it to get this far. Her words were starting to feel like a broken record, and I could feel the anger rising in me. Megan, what's going on? How long has this been happening? Are you having an affair with this guy? She looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears. I never wanted to hurt you, Jeremy. It wasn't supposed to happen. Ryan is. He's someone I met through work, and we started talking a few months ago. We became close, and one thing led to another. I could feel my heart drop as she spoke. My worst fears were confirmed, but hearing the words come out of her mouth made it feel like a punch to the gut. She had been having an affair. How long? I asked quietly, barely able to keep my voice steady. How long has it been going on? A few months, she said, barely above a whisper. I didn't mean for it to go this far, Jeremy. I didn't know how to stop it, but it's over now. I swear, it's over. I stood there, processing her words. It's over now. She said it like that made everything okay, like the damage hadn't already been done. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think straight. You think that just because it's over, I can forgive you? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. You've been seeing another man behind my back for months, Megan. And now you want me to believe that you're sorry and it's over? It doesn't work like that. You've broken my trust. How can I ever look at you the same way again? She took a step toward me, reaching for my hand, but I pulled it away. I'm so sorry, Jeremy. I never meant for it to happen. I didn't want to hurt you. But I've been feeling so lost. And Ryan was there for me. He made me feel important. I know that doesn't excuse it, but I just want you to understand. I was lonely. I didn't know how to fix things, so I made a mistake. I was so angry, but a small part of me felt for her. I understood the loneliness she was talking about. Our marriage had been great, but in the past year, things had shifted. I had been busy with work, and she had been focused on her own projects. We'd stopped talking as much. I guess I didn't see how far apart we had drifted until it was too late. But even with that understanding, it didn't make what she did okay. I felt betrayed. I felt like I had been living a lie. I don't know what to do now, Megan, I said, my voice breaking. I don't know if I can forgive you for this. She began crying, shaking her head. Please, don't give up on us, Jeremy. I love you. I've always loved you. I'm so sorry. Please don't leave me. I didn't know what to say. My mind was spinning, and my emotions were all over the place. I still loved her too, but I didn't know how to move past this. The days after our confrontation were a blur of emotions. I could barely get through the day without feeling the weight of the betrayal hanging over me. Jessica did everything she could to apologize, to show me how sorry she was, but the damage was already done. I couldn't stop thinking about her words, her actions, and the months of lies she had hidden from me. We still lived in the same house, but it felt like we were living in two different worlds. She tried to be affectionate, trying to hug me, kiss me, but I couldn't bring myself to respond the way I used to. Every touch felt like it came with a string of guilt attached to it. I had so many questions, but every time I tried to ask her about the affair, I was met with a wall of defensiveness. Why did it happen? Why didn't she tell me she was unhappy? How long had she been feeling this way? I had so many questions, but no real answers. She kept saying the affair was a mistake, and that it was over, but I couldn't get past the fact that she had kept it a secret from me for so long. I tried to focus on the kids, to give them some semblance of normalcy, but I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. I had a hard time looking at Megan without seeing Ryan, without seeing the months of lies she had hidden from me. I knew she was doing her best to show me she was sorry. She had cut off contact with Ryan, she had apologized 100 times, and she promised she would do whatever it took to make it right. But I couldn't help but wonder if the damage was irreversible, if we would ever get back to the way we were before. Could I ever trust her again? One evening, I found myself sitting in the living room, staring blankly at the wall. The kids were asleep, and Megan was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. I hadn't said much all day, and I could tell she was getting frustrated with the silence between us. She had been patient, understanding, but I knew she was waiting for me to make a decision, our decision. She walked into the room, sitting down beside me. "Jeremy," she said softly, "I know this is hard, and I know I've hurt you. But I want to do whatever it takes to fix this. I love you. I'll do anything to show you I can be the wife you deserve. Please, don't give up on us." I looked at her, trying to steady my emotions. I could see the sincerity in her eyes. But I couldn't deny what had happened. The trust had been broken, and it felt like we were standing on the edge of a cliff. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Megan," I said quietly. "I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. I don't know if we can fix this." She looked down, her face crumpling in pain. "I understand," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to show you that I'm committed to making this right. I'm not asking you to forget, just to give me a chance." I felt a deep conflict inside me. Part of me wanted to forgive her, wanted to believe that we could fix this. But another part of me, one that was still hurting, still reeling, wasn't sure if I could ever truly trust her again. I stood up, pacing the room. "I need space," I said, finally. "I need time to think. I don't know what the right decision is right now. I don't know if I can stay in this marriage." Megan looked up at me, her eyes filled with both fear and desperation. "Jeremy, please. I'll wait for as long as you need. I'll give you space, but I won't give up on us. I love you." Her words lingered in the air, but I couldn't bring myself to respond right away. I wasn't ready to give up on her, but I wasn't ready to forgive her, either. I had to figure out what I wanted, and I couldn't make that decision on the spot. I needed to think. I needed time to process everything. Over the next few days, I spent a lot of time thinking. Megan gave me the space I asked for, which I appreciated. But every time I walked into the house, I felt like I was walking into a different reality. I wasn't sure who we were anymore. I wasn't sure who she was anymore. I spent a lot of time talking to friends. Some of them said I should walk away, that I deserved better, but others said I should try to rebuild, that people make mistakes, and sometimes relationships can survive the worst betrayals. But no one had the answers I needed. No one knew what was right for me. The more I thought about it, the more I realized something important. Megan wasn't the only one who had to change. I had to change too. If I decided to stay in this marriage, I needed to learn to trust again, to let go of the anger and the resentment that were eating me up inside. But could I? Could I let go of the hurt she caused me? One evening, I decided to sit down with her again. I didn't know where we were going from here, but I needed to know if we were both willing to fight for this. "Megan," I said, as she sat down across from me, "I'm not sure what the right decision is, but I'm willing to try. I don't know if I can forgive you right now, but I'm willing to work on this. If you're committed to making it right, then I'll try to be open to it too. But it's not going to be easy." She nodded, her face filled with a mix of relief and uncertainty. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I love you, Jeremy, and I want to prove that I can be the wife you deserve." I didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, I realized we had taken the first step. It wasn't going to be easy, but maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild. It's been about a month since I decided to give our marriage a chance. Megan and I are still living under the same roof, but things feel different. The silence is sometimes deafening. Other times we'll have a conversation where we start to feel like we're getting back to the way we were, but then I'll see something that brings all the hurt rushing back, and it feels like the walls are closing in again. Megan has been trying. I won't deny that. She's been more present, more engaged, and more affectionate. She tells me constantly how sorry she is, how much she regrets what happened. She's been working on herself, going to therapy, cutting out all contact with Ryan, and being more open about her feelings. But I'm still struggling with the most important thing, trust. It's like this constant battle in my mind. I want to believe her. I want to trust that she's being truthful with me, that she's really committed to fixing what we have. But every time she leaves her phone unattended or stays out later than expected, I find myself thinking, what's really going on? Is she being honest with me, or is she hiding something? I know it's unhealthy. I know that for us to move forward, I need to let go of the past. But I just can't seem to stop myself from checking. Not just her phone anymore. Her social media, her emails, anything that might give me a hint of what she's really up to. I hate that I've become that person, but I can't help it. The doubt eats at me. One evening, Megan came home later than usual from her therapy session. She had told me she would be home by 7:30, but when I looked at the clock, it was already 9 o'clock. At first, I tried to brush it off. She'd been talking about how important this session was, and maybe she just needed more time to process things. But then I felt that familiar knot tighten in my stomach. I picked up my phone, checked the time again, and then, without even thinking about it, opened the Find My Friends app on my phone. I know this probably sounds ridiculous, but I had started checking her location on there when she was out. It wasn't something I was proud of, but I convinced myself it was the only way I could know if she was where she said she'd be. When I saw her location on the map, I was relieved to see she was still at the therapist's office. I thought, okay, maybe I'm just being paranoid. She's doing what she said she would. But just as I was about to put my phone down, I saw a message pop up from Megan. She had sent me a text at 8:45. Hey babe, I'm going to be a little late. I need to talk to Sarah about some things. I'll explain when I get home. Sarah. I thought. Who's Sarah? I had never heard her mention a Sarah before, but I decided to let it go. After all, she was being open about her therapy, and maybe it was just a fellow client she was talking to. But then, the doubt crept in again. Could she be seeing someone else? Maybe Sarah wasn't just a therapist. Maybe it was someone she was close to. Someone more than just a friend. The longer I thought about it, the more my mind spiraled. Why hadn't she told me about Sarah before? By the time Megan got home, my mind was racing. I didn't know if I should confront her about it or wait until I had more information. But the questions were eating at me. I didn't want to accuse her, but I couldn't let this go. When she walked through the door, I could see that she was tired. She came in, kissed me on the cheek, and immediately went to the kitchen. I stood in the living room for a moment, taking a deep breath. I needed to ask her. I couldn't let this go. Megan, I called from the other room. Who's Sarah? She turned, looking a bit surprised. Sarah? Oh, she's a woman from therapy. We've been working on some things together. I nodded, still unsure whether I believed her or not. You've never mentioned her before. I know, she said, sitting down. I should have mentioned her sooner. We've been talking about a few personal things, and she's been really helpful. But I swear, Jeremy, that's all it is. The explanation sounded genuine. I wanted to believe her, but a small voice in my head kept questioning it. I felt like I was being paranoid, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was something more I didn't know. That night, I sat alone for hours, thinking. I stared at the ceiling, feeling lost. I kept wondering, am I doing the right thing by giving her another chance? Am I being too suspicious? But the truth was, the constant feeling of doubt was eating me alive. I realized something that night, something that hit me like a ton of bricks. If we were going to move forward, I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep doubting her every move, questioning her every word. If I wanted to rebuild trust, I had to stop checking her phone, stop wondering if she was hiding something from me. The hardest part wasn't the affair itself. It was learning to live with the fact that it had happened. It was learning how to trust again after everything had been broken. I wasn't sure if I was ready to forgive her, but I had to make a choice. I couldn't keep holding on to the past, or I would lose everything. I made the decision that night. I was going to try. I was going to stop checking up on her, stop looking for signs of her betrayal. It wasn't going to be easy, and I wasn't sure if I would ever fully trust her again. But if we were going to rebuild, we had to start somewhere. And for better or worse, that meant taking the first step toward healing, no matter how uncertain it felt. The weeks after I made the decision to stop looking for signs of betrayal weren't easy. Every day felt like a struggle to push past the doubt, the anger, the fear that I might be making a mistake. But I kept telling myself that we had to try. Megan had promised she was committed to making things right, and I had to believe in that, even if it was hard. The first few days after my decision were the toughest. I had to resist the urge to check her phone, to ask about every text message or phone call. Every time I saw her on her phone, my mind would race. What if she's hiding something? What if she's talking to Ryan again? But instead of giving in, I focused on our interactions. I watched how she was treating me, how she was behaving. Was she being honest? Was she being kind? Was she showing me that she was committed to making things work? And slowly, things started to improve. Megan was more open with me about her day, about her therapy sessions, about everything she was doing to work on herself. She became more affectionate, more thoughtful, and more present. She wasn't perfect, and there were still moments where I could feel the distance between us, but it felt like we were moving in the right direction. One evening, after dinner, she suggested that we take a walk together. It wasn't anything fancy, just a walk around the neighborhood. But it felt different. We talked about things we hadn't talked about in months, memories from before the affair, things we wanted to do in the future. We shared laughs and small details about our lives that had seemed to slip away. It felt normal again. For the first time in a while, I didn't feel the weight of the affair between us. It was just us, talking, walking, reconnecting. But as much as I wanted to believe everything was getting better, the doubt still lingered in the background. I couldn't completely shake the feeling that Megan was holding something back, that there was something she wasn't telling me. I was trying so hard to let go, but every now and then, something would make me question if I was being too trusting. One night, after a therapy session, Megan came home and seemed a little off. She was quieter than usual, and she kept fidgeting with her phone. At first, I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe she was just tired, or maybe it was just one of those days. But when she left her phone on the counter and walked into the other room, I felt a sudden urge to look at it. I told myself I wouldn't, but the temptation was overwhelming. Just one quick glance. I picked up her phone, trying to ignore the voice in my head telling me I was doing the wrong thing. I opened her messages, and that's when I saw it, Ryan's name. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt my heart drop. I told myself that I was being ridiculous. Maybe it was just an old message, something that didn't matter anymore. I quickly scrolled through, only to see recent texts. My hands started shaking. The messages were short, but the words were enough. He was still in her life. It wasn't just a quick check-in or a casual message. They were still talking, still communicating, and still, in some way, connected. I felt my stomach twist. Megan had promised me that she had cut all contact with him, that it was over. And yet, here I was, staring at evidence that said otherwise. I put the phone down, trying to control my breathing. My hands were shaking, and my mind was racing. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront her right now? Should I wait? I felt the anger bubbling up inside of me, but I also knew I had to be calm, that I couldn't make rash decisions. When Megan came back into the room, she could tell something was off. I didn't want to say anything, but the doubt was too strong. I had to know the truth, even if it hurt. Megan, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. I saw the messages on your phone. I saw that you've been talking to Ryan. Her face immediately went pale, and she stepped back, like she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't. Jeremy, she said, her voice trembling, I didn't want you to find out like this. I didn't mean for it to happen, but we've still been talking. It wasn't anything like before. I promise. I felt the anger rising, but I tried to stay calm. How long, Megan? How long have you been talking to him behind my back? You said it was over. You promised me you were done with him. She started crying, shaking her head. I swear, Jeremy, it's not what you think. We've been talking, but it hasn't been anything like it was before. I promise. I was trying to figure things out, to understand everything, and I made the mistake of reaching out to him. I should have told you. I should have been honest, but I didn't know how. I stood there, staring at her, the weight of everything crashing down on me again. She had promised me. She had told me it was over. And yet, here she was, admitting that she had lied, that she had been talking to him all along. I don't know what to say anymore, I said, my voice barely audible. How can I trust you after this? How can I move forward when it feels like I'm just going to keep getting hurt? Megan stepped toward me, wiping her eyes. Jeremy, I love you. I don't want to lose you. Please, I made a mistake. I've been trying to fix myself, but I understand if you can't forgive me. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. All I knew was that my heart was breaking, and the doubt I had been trying to fight was now stronger than ever. How could I keep fighting for something when it felt like I was the only one trying? But even then, a part of me still loved her. A part of me still wanted to believe that we could rebuild. I wasn't ready to give up, but I wasn't sure if I could ever fully trust her again. We weren't at the end, but it felt like we were miles away from where we started. The road to rebuilding wasn't going to be easy, and I wasn't sure if we would make it. But for the first time in weeks, I knew we had to make a choice. Either we fight together, or we let go. The confrontation with Megan about Ryan was a turning point for us. After she admitted to still talking to him, I felt my world collapse all over again. For a moment, it felt like everything we had worked for, everything we had tried to rebuild, was completely shattered. I was left standing there in silence, unsure of what came next. Megan was crying, begging me to understand that she had been confused, that she made a mistake by reaching out to Ryan to process her feelings. But I couldn't seem to process anything myself. All I could think about was how much she had lied to me, how she had promised me that she was done with him, and how she betrayed that promise. I spent that night in a daze. I barely slept, my mind running in circles. I kept wondering if I had been too trusting, if I had allowed myself to be deceived for too long. I hated feeling this way. I hated not being able to control my emotions, not knowing whether to fight for this marriage or walk away. The next day, we had another quiet conversation. Megan kept apologizing, but I was numb. I didn't know how to respond. I couldn't just forgive her. I couldn't pretend that everything was fine. But I wasn't sure if I was ready to give up on everything we had built together either. I was torn between wanting to save our marriage and wanting to protect myself from more hurt. I don't know what to do anymore, Megan, I said, finally breaking the silence. I want to trust you. I want to believe you when you say it's over. But I don't know if I can. Every time I think we're getting somewhere, something happens, and I'm right back to square one. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I know I failed you, she said, her voice breaking. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to prove I'm committed to you, to us. I've made so many mistakes, but I don't want to lose you, Jeremy. Please. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. I don't know, Megan. I need time. I need space to think about this. I can't keep going in circles. I don't know if I can trust you again. But I also don't want to make a rash decision and regret it later. I just need some time to figure things out. Megan nodded, tears in her eyes. I'll give you all the time you need. I just want you to know I love you, and I'll wait for as long as it takes. The following weeks were full of mixed emotions. Megan respected my need for space, and I tried to focus on the things that helped me stay grounded: work, time with the kids, and moments of reflection. I kept thinking about our past, about the love we had shared, the family we had built, and the times we laughed together. I wasn't sure if I could ever fully forgive her, but I wasn't ready to let go completely either. We continued therapy, both individually and together. And though there were still moments of tension, there were small breakthroughs. Megan became more transparent with her actions. She had stopped checking her phone obsessively and kept no secrets from me. She would often ask me how I was feeling, what I needed, and how she could help me heal. Slowly, I could see that she was serious about making amends, but I was still unsure of whether I could truly trust her again. I won't lie, it was exhausting. Some days, I felt like I was making progress, like maybe we could get past this and rebuild something stronger. But then, there would be a moment, a small comment, a gesture that would bring the hurt flooding back, and I would question everything all over again. But in the midst of all the pain, I found moments where I realized that the person I had married was still there. She was trying, and I was trying too. We weren't there yet, but I was beginning to see that if we wanted this to work, we both had to put in the effort every single day. One evening, Megan and I sat on the couch after the kids had gone to bed, talking about what we wanted for the future. She told me she was committed to showing me that she could be the woman I needed. She wasn't asking for my forgiveness, but she was asking for a chance to prove that she could earn back my trust. I'm willing to fight for you, for us, she said, her voice steady but full of emotion. I know it's not going to be easy, but I believe we can rebuild. And I don't want to give up on this, Jeremy. I stared at her, feeling torn. I didn't know if I could forgive her completely, but I realized something in that moment. I wasn't ready to give up either. Maybe it wasn't about erasing the past, but about learning how to move forward, step by step. Months have passed since that conversation, and while things are still far from perfect, I can honestly say that we're doing better. We've both been working on ourselves. Megan has been consistent with her therapy, and I've been focused on rebuilding trust in a way that feels manageable. It's not easy, and it won't ever be the same as it was before, but there are days now where I feel hopeful again. We've taken it slow. We've had hard conversations, moments of doubt, and times when the pain resurfaced. But we've also laughed together, shared intimate moments, and connected in ways we hadn't in years. It's been a journey, and it's one that's still ongoing. I'm not sure what the future holds, and maybe I never will be. But I've come to realize that healing isn't linear. There are ups and downs, setbacks, and small victories. And maybe just maybe, we can rebuild something better than before. I don't know if I'll ever fully forget the betrayal, but I'm learning how to trust again. I'm learning how to let go of the hurt and focus on what we can build moving forward. Megan is doing the same, and though we've got a long road ahead, for the first time in months, I feel like we might just make it.